Welcome to TerraceTruthTalkin. I'm Joanna Bonaro, and today we have a guest host, Karen Abbate. Welcome,
Hi.
Karen.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And Karen is an award-winning creative director for the advertising agency Wunderman Thompson. She has created TV commercials, amazing TV commercials for some of the most famous brands, including Johnson & Johnson, Verizon, Unilever, Pfizer, and AT&T. So you're amazing.
Well, thank you. And you know I'm the number one fan of the Joanna Bonaro fan club, who I've just the most amazing actress of the big screen, the small screen, and whatever.
Thank you.
It's great to be here with this wonderful host.
Yes.
Guest.
So, without much ado. So it's a new year, and this is our first episode of the new year. And this is our philosophy episode. And under that, we're going to talk about new beginnings and forks in the road of one's career. And we have our wonderful guest, Anna Kepe-Haas. And she is going to talk to us. I have known Anna for over a decade, but after doing some research on Anna, she's a Renaissance woman. She's simply an amazing, multi-talented individual. And I don't say that because I know and love her. You will see it for yourself. Yogi Berra once said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And that's exactly what Anna has done. When you come to a point in your life where you think of the various roads that you want to take, that you haven't taken, that you want to take. And sometimes they're scary, and sometimes you're just ready to take the plunge. And Anna has basically done that. She's very accomplished with a varied career. She has been an actress, which is how I originally know her, a director, producer, business executive, entrepreneur, and now is a vice president at CIT with a trajectory that is profoundly accelerated and amazing. She has an MFA from the Shakespeare Theatre Academy for Classical Acting in Washington, D.C. under the direction of Michael Kahn. And she also, amazing, has an MBA from NYU Stern School of Business for finance
and operations. Yeah.
She's originally from Latvia. And she is trilingual, which I'm really jealous about, in English, Latvian, and Russian. So, without further ado, Anna, welcome.
Yes,
first of all.
you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. This is very, very exciting.
And why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
You know, it's interesting. I always think about the forming kind of moments in your life. So you gave me such a great introduction. So I think I'll just mention where I come from, because I think that's important for our later discussion to understand sort of my philosophy in life. As Joanna said, I was born in Latvia. My mother is now a retired cardiologist, and my dad, he passed away some years ago, but he was a professor of theoretical mechanics. I will not go into discussing what that means. But as I was growing up, a large political shift happened. I was born under Soviet Union, and then as the changes happened, the Berlin Wall fell. And then Latvia regained independence in a very sort of turbulent shift of events from 1989 through 1993. I was just a little child. And I think that's one of the first forming moments. I mean, forming moments before that, too, experiencing communism, all that. But it's really, seeing the political shift and as a little child actually understanding what that means and understanding that you, as a country, we had such a tiny, sort of fickle, tiny slither of time to make some critical decisions to regain independence. That was one of those forming moments that I always go back to and I always remember. You have those few things that kind of like flash in your head that have formed you. And that's one of those. So, and then from then on, then I grew up and then I decided to move to United States. So I moved to Los Angeles to go to film school when I was, 18, 19.
Well, it's interesting.
With two little suitcases in hand.
Yeah.
And I'm sure my parents, going through a panic attack and being very upset that I moved so far away. But, and then
Well, it's those... first of all, that's very interesting, having been born in America. I mean, I'm a first generation, but still, I've never known anyone who actually experienced anything like that, growing up in that Russian-occupied society, basically. But also when we talk about what molds you and what stays with you as a young child, mm-hmm. and those perhaps experiences that are not always so positive, but then you take one of the things that I found remarkable when I first met Anna, and we were paired up to do something from a Shakespearean scene, and we always pretended and said, these men, but we laugh about it to this day. But what was remarkable about Anna was that she could always turn a negative into a positive, and that's, I think, from her upbringing, is that she had an inner strength that I always admired, and found humor and a strength that I always admired. I think I became tangential right now, but how it pertains to this podcast is, in order to transition from one career to the next, you have to find inner strength. And I think your formative years gave you inner strength. So let's talk about, now you're coming to America with, let's go back to your two suitcases.
My two suitcases. Yeah, so I got on a flight and from Latvia traveled to, I think I flew to Helsinki, and then from Helsinki to New York, and then to Los Angeles. My two suitcases, I knew one person in Los Angeles through a friend of my mother's, and that was it. And it was terrifying, but it was also exciting because there were possibilities, and they were unknown possibilities, but it was thrilling to figure out what they could be. And that sort of has driven me the entire life, to figure out what it is. What are those chances that you can take? And I strongly believe that if you don't take those chances, then you never know what could have been. And then you always wonder, I maybe should have done this, and I never did it. So I would strongly advise everybody, and, of course, if it's legal, to do anything illegal. But, those trips or things that you really want to do, or people you want to meet or see things, experience life, you should just grab it and do it. That brings me to when my dad passed away, my mother pulled me aside and she said, keep doing what you're doing. Doesn't matter what it is, but experience life, because, before you know it, life will have passed before your eyes, and you will be very upset that you didn't take that bull by the horns and you experience things. So that drives me every day, the possibilities and the excitement of life. And, there are drawbacks, there are moments that upset you, but you kind of have to navigate through those quickly, because there's always, I believe, I'm an eternal optimist, that there's that shining light on the other side. You just have to go through that door and figure it out and find it.
It's so true. She really is. She's just not saying she's an eternal optimist. She is. That's what I love about her.
Oh my God, I'm always the glass half empty. So to hear this is so exciting.
I mean, to be around Anna is like being around multiple suns in the universe.
Thank you.
Now, Anna, when you chose Los Angeles, was that to be an actress, or is it because you just knew someone there?
No, I didn't, that one person, but I applied to different schools, including England. I focused on the English language speaking countries, of course. So there was United States, there was England, and I wanted to go to a good film school. So once I was accepted into a few programs, I decided, well, where does film happen? Los Angeles, I should go. I should go where film world is taking place. So that took me to LA. Yeah.
And I know you met a lot of interesting people in LA, but we're not really talking about that today. So, and then you came to New York.
I did.
And you were acting in New York, and you have a very impressive acting resume. And you also...
And then soon after I went to Washington, D.C. because I really, what excited me, again, I was just chasing down what is it that excites me. And I realized that Shakespeare classics, Jacobean theater excited me. So I actually auditioned for Juilliard, where I met Michael Kahn. And Michael Kahn said, well, you should come to the Academy for Classical Acting in Washington, D.C. So then I did a quick audition there, and I decided to follow him to Washington. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And it continues to be. Michael Kahn just retired from Shakespeare Theater, but it continues to be one of the most exciting programs I believe there is for classical acting.
And so, and I think that helped you, from my knowledge about the trajectory of your career creatively. That helped you not only with the acting, but then you went into directing. And just tell us quickly about that, because you wanted to branch out not only to be an actor, but a director. And the education helps you.
At that time, what was happening, I think, in my head was that I love acting, always have, but I realized that there's something more, and as I was trying to figure out what it was, which eventually I figured out that it was actually producing. It was making things happen, actually being behind the scenes and solving problems, and that we'll talk about how that leads into banking.
Yeah.
But so I realized that actually I was happier off stage, making sure that those who are on stage and doing things have everything that they need and the production is going smoothly. So that's how that led me into then directing, because at that point I was just searching. I was trying to figure out what it is what it is that I'm looking for. And that also led into producing. It led into directing some plays, and getting into physical theater and also teaching. And through that journey, then I discovered that, and creating some theater companies and putting on shows. And through that journey, then I realized that that's what I really love. I just love being a producer or solving the problems, creating things.
But that I think is a critical self-assessment. And it's helpful to, I believe, listeners, because someone else might say, well, I thought I wanted to do this my whole life. Mm-hmm. I've done A, B, C, D to be an actress. I've spent all these years doing it, and I should just keep on doing it because, and that would actually hold someone back, as opposed to what you did was use it as a building block for something else.
Yeah. And you also, what I realized, what was holding me back from actually making that transition to producing, directing earlier was exactly what you just said, that I've spent so many years, because I've been acting since I was a little kid, that I should continue this. By all means, I should continue. So I actually called my mother. And I said, Mom, will you be very upset if I do something else? And she said, no, you're great at this, but you could do all these other things. You should do what you love to do. And I said, really? Because you've invested in me. My parents, they're supporting me. And she said, no, we are supporting you for whatever you want to do. Just go do it. And that, I think, I needed that permission from my mother, my parents, to say, yes, go for it.
Isn't it parents?
And that was kind of like this rock on my head.
Yeah, well, because parents ultimately, you always think, well, my parents wanted me to do this, and my parents will be proud of me only if I do that. Mm-hmm. And your parents ultimately go back and say to you, I just want you to be happy. Yes. And if you're happy doing that, then I'm happy. At least a lot of parents tend to, and you go back and you're like, oh, okay, well, good. Whew, I don't need to worry about that anymore. But so, Yeah, because one of my questions was also when you're looking to what you were really good at and you continue to be is you take your experiences and you use them as building blocks, right? But somebody might say, well, what happens if I made a mistake? If I choose a path that turns out to be not right for me? I thought it was going to be right for me, but it's not.
That's okay. I think that's a journey. It's all a learning experience, because I was thinking about, well, I could have listened more to my dad and went to business school when I was, 18, but I didn't. So I then embarked in this journey of self-discovery, really. Filled with opportunities, only then to later realize that, I should go get an MBA and go into business.
Well, that's what I think is fascinating.
I should have listened to my dad. But then again, it was better because I would have been a different person. And I would have never experienced all these fabulous things and met fascinating people that probably then shaped me who I am.
So let me ask you, there was a time where we had lost touch, and you became the COO of Kettles and Company. So you were transitioning, and was it during the time when you were the COO of Kettles and Company that you decided to get your MBA?
It was kind of running a company. I had to learn what I have to do. I just learned by the seat of my pants.
Oh, and by the way, guys, I don't know the answers to some of these questions, so I don't want you to think this is planned. I don't know.
This is all impromptu. But my husband, Jonathan, he's been incredibly supporting, as have all my friends. And he said, you're really good at this stuff. And I was like, yeah, but there's so many things that I just don't know. So maybe I should go and learn about those things that I don't know. So that's how the business school came up, because I was like, I should really go and learn the language of business, learn, all these details that I now see that they are there, and I'm making them up and learning about them. But I should just immerse myself into a program with other like-minded people who are in the business and learn more about it, learn more about just the financial world, so I have a better understanding. And that's what I did.
Well, you've always had a very curious, inquisitive mind. That's what I love about her.
And to listeners, you should never lose it.
Never.
Be a child. Actually, my father-in-law, I always asked him how he was a CEO of Sealy Posturepedic for many years. And he said, I never ceased to be the little boy, the explorer. Or the little girl. That's how I think about it. We're growing up, but just keep that curiosity. Never lose it.
That's what's fabulous.
The playfulness.
Yeah. And there seems to be no mistakes in you. It seems like you don't look at it as mistakes. It's all part of the journey.
There are mistakes, but it's part of the journey. So you make mistakes. And, I think when I was in my 20s, I saw the mistakes, but maybe I wasn't as good, learning from them. But now, as I'm getting older, I think I'm then looking back what it was, and still they're shaping me again. I'm learning from those mistakes and trying to do better. So I don't look at it as, oh my God, I failed. Now I'm under the table for months and crying. It's like, okay, I failed at something. So now how do we fix it?
That's great. I mean, it's funny because one of the questions we were going to ask is what your biggest failure was, but it sounds like you don't think of it as failures.
Well, no, I don't think. I think of them as opportunities to do something, to do it better.
You know what's funny? I've read articles about that, and I read that in articles, and I'm like,
how do you do that?
Yeah. It's so easy to say. And here we have a living, breathing individual, and I'm telling you, she genuinely does do that. So
there's one thing
talk
that
a little bit more about that, please.
Well, for example, it's, I won't go into all these other failures, but one, and it's kind of a light one, is I know 3 languages, but I would like to know more. And I should have learned them when I was a kid. When I had these great opportunities in school, we had French. And I was like, I don't want to learn French. Or there was Spanish, or there was German. And So now I go, why didn't I do it? Because now every year it just gets harder and harder. And that's something I desperately want, because I love to travel. I love it. And it's so fascinating when you go to a country and you can actually understand what everybody's saying and have a conversation and understand the culture. And that's what I would love to do more. So I have a smattering understanding of some other languages, so I wouldn't get lost, but I would really want to be conversational in more of them. So I was like, well, fine. So I'll just go take a class and learn more languages. So there's the one thing that you never did, but you can fix it.
Right.
What a great attitude.
I know. Isn't it amazing? Well, it's not amazing. It's you.
Thank you, Joanna.
So you're a COO at Kettles & Company, and then you decide what? Because then you you decide to change jobs, and you become the executive director at New York
Theater Ballet,
yeah. Which is kind of when we reconnected at some point. Yeah.
So what happened then was that's when I realized I should be in business, in leadership positions. I went and obtained my MBA, and it became natural that the New York Theater Ballet job, because I was in entertainment. So it was sort of a fluid transition. I got recruited by New York Theater Ballet to come and work for them. So I did. And it was because of Kettles & Company, New York Theater Ballet, that's when I started to realize, because I was getting into more of just the business aspects of it, not the entertainment, not the portion of it. So I realized that, you know what, I should now pursue something that I actually trained for at NYU. It's very heavily finance driven. And that's how then the banking opportunity came up, and it came not because of the entertainment background, but because I layered on top the MBA, the real business world understanding. And that again was, this is a fabulous opportunity. It's very exciting. So I was like, yes, let's go for it.
But what is interesting is that a lot of times you read business articles, you read Forbes magazine. I mean, before I transitioned from the cosmetic industry back to acting, you're entrenched in everything business like, what have you. And they talk about your 1-year plan, your 3-year plans, your 5-year plans, which I always found a bit disingenuous, because unless it was a purely financial thing for budgets, et cetera, and which are necessary. But as far as career goes, they need to be very broad, but for transitioning, or it's hard to have a 5-year plan. How am I going to transition? Because a lot of times one doesn't really plan for these transitions. They're very organic.
Right.
Your life changes in such a way, either positive or negative. That I think is not the issue. It's just something, a catalyst occurs inside you or through your life, and you say, okay, or just an opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
And so that's not part of your, let's say, plan. So for you, it was very
it's organic. I think everything in my life has been organic, because I never planned. I never wrote down, okay, now this day I'm going to do that, and then in 1 year I will do that. I kind of had a general idea where it's probably going, but like going and transitioning into banking, I had no idea. I thought maybe that's where I would end up, but I had no idea how it could or would happen. It's kind of just the opportunity comes, and you either grab it or you don't. I like saying yes.
I was just going to say that. It sounds like you like saying yes.
I do. And sometimes you get overwhelmed because you're saying yes, but it's also very exciting. So you just figure out how you're going to handle it.
And what do you think are the biggest risks that you've taken?
The risks, that's what I think my move away from Latvia was the biggest biggest risk.
Quite.
Sure, we're so young.
It's sort of you're moving away into the unknown, you know.
So what was your safety net? Because even though we're talking about you and you're so young and you don't know anyone, so I'm just thinking, I'm just imagining I'm young Anna, and I don't know anyone, and I'm full of hope and wonder and adventure and experience because you acted and maybe one or two, 6 degrees, 3 degrees of separation connection, recommendations. And then here you are, you arrive in the airport, you're in LA, you're here, and then wonderful, but things happen. What was your safety net? And I think that can be utilized at any age when you're starting something new. Like, what would you say?
Oh my God, I was petrified.
Yeah, but they say, there's a saying that when I was trying to prepare for this, and I like this saying. It kind of caught my eye. It's from Bethany Hamilton, and I think she might be a surfer. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, Bethany, but I love your quote. Courage doesn't mean you don't get afraid. Courage means you don't let fear stop you.
Right. It's very true. Absolutely. Because you're afraid probably all the time. I remember going on stage and being petrified, and then you just keep going. You just get through it. But back to arriving in LA, I only knew one person. And I didn't really think that I would stay in the United States. I thought I would go through my education and then I would go back. But that supposedly never happens. You just, because then you have friends, you have relationships, all this stuff. Your life happens, especially when you're 18 years old. And then you just stay. So you kind of build that safety net, I guess, and there's always the safety net of your family. That's a little far away, but they're always there for you.
It sounded like they encouraged you. It sounded like Mom would have been, go for it.
So basically, I think the safety net also for when you're older is, I think one needs to identify the safety net. So it's not only your family, let's say, but if perhaps you don't have the most supportive family, then there have to be colleagues who are supportive. There have to be your influencers of some sort that are supportive there. If you have to maybe get a coach and put off whatever the transition is that you want to make, your coach or a life coach or even a therapist can provide some support system. So if financially you may have to invest in that, but it's worth the investment, because I think I have personally found through life that the confidence is one of the most important assets that can take you through life and help you and give you the courage to overcome the fear, or at least mask it for a while until, fake it till you make it. And so one needs to find that support system.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you find people, I know, like you, Joanna.
Thank you.
I'm known for so many years, but there are people like that who maybe you don't see them for long periods of time, and then you see them again, and it's like you never got separated, Yeah.
Well, those are my wonderful,
the most important thing.
Friends.
Yeah. But if, that person would call you in the middle of the night after, I don't know, I haven't seen them for 15 years.
It wasn't that long.
No, or 10 years or 5 years. It doesn't matter.
I'm really
just taking the long period.
Yeah.
But that you just know that you're going to jump in a cab and go to their rescue.
True. Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah. So, we'll talk about, you then transitioned, and I keep on saying this because you do have a lot of transitions, but they all built. I think that's important for this podcast and what our theme is, and talking about forks in the road and new beginnings. They were new, but there are building blocks here. And, when they say in those nefarious articles I'm talking about, that, you self-assess and you say, what is it that I do know? So maybe I don't have, let's say I'm older. I'm over 40, right? Because that's really who's listening. Most of the people who are listening to this podcast, right? And either maybe I've been a stay-at-home mom for a while, or, I don't have those computer skills. But what you do have is you have organizational skills. You have prioritizing skills. You have the ability to manage people's skills. You have team building skills. You have skills that perhaps a 25-year-old just won't have because of life experience. And those are the skills that when you are presenting yourself to an organization. Right. Now, some people may not value that. And so therefore that's not the organization that you you go to. But those are the skills that at least initially you look at and say, because then that gives you confidence, that gives you the building. And that's in many ways like what you did, along with saying, I'm curious, I'm interested, this is what I like, and this is where the pockets that need to be filled in that I still like. So now I'm going to get a finance MBA.
Yeah. And, and I think that there's so many different classes, not everybody has to go get an MBA from NYU Stern. Right. It just depends what you need. There are different, classes in libraries and, for computer skills and community classes. It just depends. I think you have to find the direction or what you would like to do, and then figure out what it is that you need to equip yourself with, your little bag of tricks and tools. And what tools do you have in there? And you probably have more than you think you do. Because everybody, even I look at myself and go, oh, I don't know this and this and that. But then when you really dig deep, you probably know more than you think you do. And then you look at, well, what is it that I don't know? Or what is it that I need to have on my resume so these people would look at me? And then you go and you acquire these tools and put them on there. And through that, you probably also meet people who then go, hey, this is a really great person. Because really, I think at the end of the day, it's also, of course, there are skills that you need to have to do a certain job. But it's also, will the people want to work with you? It's about
likability.
Because you spend many hours with these people. You spend probably more at work than at home.
That's true.
And you want to work with people whom you like, who are, easier to get along with. And, you can rely on them because there are different problems that you have to solve. So, it's kind of that tools and who you are as a human being.
And I think I wanted to bring something up because, when I was producing my TV pilot, and Anna and I met for coffee and we reconnected, right? On 42nd Street coffee place. We were like, let's meet. Okay, we did. And she started to share what she was doing, and I was telling her what I was doing. And I needed a producer, and Anna said, okay, I'll produce. And I was like, thank you, God from heaven. Because I knew Anna's work ethic. I knew she was extremely intelligent. I knew, everything that she had done, both as an actress. I knew directing and producing, and we were talking about Kettles and Company and New York Theater Ballet and everything.
And also the likability.
And that's it. And it's and of course we had a great friendship, and the energy was the same. And I'm really, I have a really, if I say so myself, I'm like a workaholic work ethic. Mm-hmm. So I really love work ethic in other people. And Anna has just an amazing work ethic. And I think when you find someone who's both likable and has an amazing work ethic, that makes all the difference. And not only for what you're doing, but then when you want to recommend them for something else. Yeah. So I
think
know
that builds. I think
it does.
Yeah.
And people, I know that when we were finally on set, first of all, thank you, Anna. I could have never accomplished what I accomplished for my TV series if you hadn't helped me produced it. I couldn't have. So I just want to put that out there to the world. It just wouldn't have happened without Anna Kepe-Haas.
Thank you, Joanna.
It is that the likability and the work ethic are noticed then by people that you may not realize are looking. And that can lead to job opportunities. And I think, and you don't know it, but it does.
That's true.
And that's why I think, when we go around our lives, we should be who we are. We shouldn't act at something and pretend to be who we're not just because we think maybe somebody's looking, because you don't. You should just be yourself. There's one more trait really that I think is incredibly important as you're talking about, all this loyalty.
Yes.
In my book, loyalty is like, it's hand in hand with all these other things.
I know, me too.
Yeah,
me
it's
too.
so true.
Yeah.
Because,
Genuine loyalty.
Genuine loyalty.
And it's rare.
It's very rare.
Because that's what
Dad used to talk about all the time. Respect and loyalty. And I was like, oh, Dad. And now I'm like, respect and loyalty.
We become our parents.
Yeah, because it's one of those where, if I see fake loyalty, that just really bugs me. It's either, it's just loyalty, 100%. Yeah.
So I want to be a megaphone also for Anna. So Anna is now at CIT Bank and is on the fast track and is now a vice president after 2 years. Well, she's been a vice president for a while now, right?
About a year.
Yeah. About a year. Wow.
Okay. Well,
something. Yeah. No, you're right.
What did I say wrong?
Nothing.
What did I say?
No, nothing. I've been a vice president for about a year, yeah.
And she won she was nominated for and won a very prestigious and coveted award called, and I have it in my notes. Why don't you say what it was? Because I think this is one of the, thus far in her accomplished life, I'm so proud of her. When I found out, you have to understand, I'm like her older sister, aunt, surrogate American mom.
Big fan.
When I found out about this, I got chills. So, but you say it correctly.
Yeah. It's called the Women's Bond Club 2019 Rising Star Award.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
The premier preeminent organization for women in financial services industry, the Women's Bond Club, and different financial service companies. They're participants in the Women's Bond Club, and CIT Group is one of them. And I was nominated to be the CIT Group's 2019 Rising Star. And it was a very exciting event. Jonathan came with me, and we had our CEO was there and all the executives, and you parade out along with all the other rising stars. And this is
in a pool of not just in, you see, the reason why it's really special, it's not just within the organization.
It's what first thing is within the organization.
But
then you are amongst, I don't know, there were about 50, 60 people across all the financial service organizations.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
The large companies. So that was
won.
Very exciting.
Yeah. So
wow.
Proud mama here.
It was a wonderful event.
Yeah.
Was that a highlight? Was that one of the highlights or the highlight of your career?
I think it was one of the top highlights.
Okay.
It was definitely, I was just so very proud, and also, that kind of loyalty, representing CIT Group and being their rising star for the year. It was an amazing moment.
So I have one last question, and then we'll go into our closing.
Yes.
But this has been very interesting.
What a fascinating.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I also, as an aside, I want everyone to know that I can't flirt to save my life. And Anna taught me how to flirt when we were at RADA.
Oh, I think that's another whole podcast.
It's a whole nother skill set.
Joanna, I've perfected my skills. I'm much more subtle these days.
Yeah, but she was very good at it. And
to the listeners, you should flirt now and then. Doesn't matter if you're married or not.
No.
It's a very healthy thing. Do it.
That's another whole.
It's like vitamin C.
And she's
How to
very
flirt.
happily married.
And my husband knows that,
yes,
so it's fine.
She's very happily married. So this is not in any way, a negative thing. And I'm happily married, so it's not a negative thing. It's just like I would see her flirt, and I would be like, "How do you do that?" I don't know. So anyway, Anna.
Yeah.
Anna, I just thought I'd put a little more.
Yeah.
I guess a little less serious.
Mm-hmm.
What does, in your life now, what does success mean to you?
It's interesting. It's, and it kind of goes with what excites me, I think. Because, success, there's climbing the ladder, going from vice president to the next step and up the organizational ladder you can go. But it's also, I think of success as what ultimately makes me happy in life. And if I have done all those things, so of course there's work success. That's one thing. And of course I'm looking forward to growing through the organization and doing bigger and better things, which is very exciting. And of course it's going to be very successful, hopefully. But then there is a success in life. And what does that really mean? And I look at it as, and it might sound sort of cliche and sort of funny, but I truly believe it. It's about if I can actually be helpful to other people. Can I help my friends? And that's where it kind of gets less about me and my big ego, I guess. And it becomes my friends, my family, other people. It's about the possibilities. And it's about if I have taken chances and traveled down that road less traveled, so that at the end of life I look back and instead of going, I should have done all those things, but I never did them, and wonder what could have been, but instead actually taking those chances, doing things and whether they turn out great or they don't, but you've done them. And I think that's very important. And that's kind of, if I think about success, it's the success in life, success in business, in the career. Of course, there are aspirations of, leading companies and doing all that stuff. But then there's the life success. And I think that's incredibly important, to not forget about your life, because we all work long hours and do great things. But then when you're, 95, hopefully 9,500, what is it that made your life successful? I think that's important.
Or enriched.
Enriched, exactly. Yeah.
So no regrets.
Did you live a full life where you were kind of just along for the ride? Or
Yeah.
were you driving things? Were you participating? Did you put full muscle into it and do great things?
Great.
So
Well,
I don't
thank
know.
you.
When
What
I'm
a great
95, I'll
answer.
tell you.
All right. I hope I'm around.
I think you're on the right track for yes.
So do I. Yeah. Dynamo. Thank you so much. But we have 3 questions to ask you that we end every segment.
Okay.
And these are just instinctual. It's not a long answer.
Okay.
I mean, it could be, but it's really, you could say it with one word.
Okay.
So, what excites you now?
Possibilities.
Perfect.
Great.
Like that one.
And what about what steams you?
What steams me? Cowardice, forgetting friends. I mean, forgetting, sort of talking out of the both sides of your mouth, and people who have fake loyalty. That really gets to me.
Okay.
Good answer.
And I don't know if we even need this last question, because I think you've been doing it the whole podcast. So I'm going to just say what the question is and say, I think Anna's answered it, unless you have something to add.
Okay.
Okay. What advice would you give younger women of today?
Grasp life by its, whatever it is, horns? What's the and go forward. Be positive. Have the can-do attitude. Don't say no. And just always, because I know they're painful moments and it's hard to, to always be all cheerful. And I'm definitely not all cheerful all the time, but that's when I'm ruminating and thinking about, what the solution could be. So I think you should try to always look at what's behind that door and where can you go? What will be the next step? Yes, I fell down, but now I have to get up. and get up quicker, because longer you're staying down, the harder it gets to get up, I think.
Now
Wow.
you know why I love her?
Right. What a great answer.
I know.
I feel like I've learned so much. Amazing.
Thank you.
Can I grow up and you be my mentor?
Okay. Sure. Anytime.
Okay. And now we have a book recommendation. Karen has a wonderful book that you're going to recommend.
Yeah, it's a great book. I encourage you all to read it. It's called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, and it's by Dr. Robert Cialdini. And it's basically how to persuade people. And in one quick thing, if you want someone to do something for you, you start off by doing something for them. That's one of the ways.
I like
Yeah.
that. Okay. And so we will close our wonderful beginning of 2020 segment with our motto, Remember, kindness counts.